Hello, sorry I can't be there today. I was pulled into a meeting at the district office. So instead, you have this PowerPoint that comes complete with my voice. So listen along, and if you have questions, please feel free to email me. I will be back on campus later on today, or you can come by and see me tomorrow. So the next section that we're going to do is the last section in chapter 1. And just a reminder, you have your first chapter test on Tuesday. The test is multiple choice and free response. So in section 3, it kind of goes through all of our kind of nitty-gritty stuff. You're going to need to be able to find all the different types of numbers, means, standard deviations, 5-number summaries, and be able to make a box plot. Again, I know a lot of this stuff is review for you. It's just being able to talk about it on a more sophisticated level, and today I'll be helping you on using the calculator to help you out on it. So first thing I wanted to go over with you guys is breaking down that 5-number summary. So we have our list of data here. And when you start off with all of your data, the first thing you're going to do is put those in order. And once you have them in order, you're going to identify your minimum value, your maximum value, and then you're going to find your median. Now remember, if you have an even number of data values, as we do in this list, then your median is going to be between two values. If you have an odd number, then your median would be that number that falls in the middle. And you would kind of take it out, move it to the side, and then you have two equal groups on either side of it. So in this case, we have our minimum of 5, our maximum of 85. Our median is 22.5 because that's the average of these two numbers. Add them together, divide by 2. Then for our first quartile, it's the median of these lower numbers. So notice the median splits it in half. Now I'm going to take these lower numbers and I'm going to split them in half. In this case, when I split them in half, it would fall between these two 15s, which is going to be 15 for our Q1. And then the same thing over here. I have all, 10 numbers over here. And I'm going to have 5 on either side of it. So it's going to be between, so the average of 40 and 45, giving me 42.5. Now for your interquartile range, I'm going to take Q3 minus Q1, and that gives my interquartile range. Interquartile range begins at Q1 and ends at Q3. It is this middle set of data. The interquartile range is a number. It is a number that's representing the middle 50% of your data. Now the range, on the other hand, would be our maximum minus our minimum. Maximum minus the minimum would give us our range, which again is a number. So be careful when you're talking about these things. You need to be sure that you're talking about them as numbers and not as things or objects. Some people like to refer to the box. The box is what we see in our box and whisker plot. The interquartile range is the number that tells us how wide that box is. A couple of things to keep in mind. The range is heavily influenced by outliers because it takes into consideration the min and max, whereas the interquartile range is not influenced by outliers because we're only looking at that middle 50%. When we're looking for outliers, remember going through your SOCs. We talked about it the other day in class, Tuesday in class. When you're looking for outliers, you first look for them, and then you're going to test for them. To test for them, you do 1.5 times the interquartile range. That's one of the places the interquartile range comes most in handy, is using this rule here. So once you find your interquartile range, you multiply it times 1.5. Then you subtract that from Q1 to get your lower bound, and you add that to Q1 to get your upper bound. So in this case, if you had a number that was less than negative 26.25, that would become an outlier. Or if you have a number that's greater than 83.75, that would be an outlier. So if you looked at your stem plot and you had anything outside of that, which in this case it does, it has a value at 85, then this 85 would be deemed an outlier. So know what your measures of center are and your measures of spread are, Mean and median are your measures of center. Standard deviation, interquartile range, and range are your measures of spread. Your mean and your standard deviation are generally the ones that we use. However, they're both heavily influenced by outliers. If you have outliers, then median and interquartile range is a better representation of your data. This one I just wanted to show you guys because it's the overall way that we're going to organize our problems throughout all of statistics. So as you're working through a problem, you want to think of these 4 steps. First, state. So what's the question that you're trying to answer? This is going to help you stay focused on that question, so you're not going off and answering all different things. Then plan. Think about how you're going to go about it. So in the very beginning, this is kind of surface and basic for you, but as we move through this, there's going to be lots of different techniques you can use, and there's also conditions to using different techniques. So really think about this plan stage. Then doing is actually doing the calculations, creating the graphs, and then finally conclusion. Remember, we keep talking about this, answering in context, interpreting what's happening. Every problem needs to have this conclusion step where you're talking about what does this actually mean. Okay, so now I want to walk you through a couple of calculator functions. First, the one variable statistics. This is just helpful for you to know. So I'm going to skip over to a video that's going to walk you through your one variable stats. Explain to you how to use one variable statistics in your calculator. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my set of data and I'm going to put it into a list in my calculator. To do that, you're going to press Stat on your calculator, then press Enter on Edit, and then when you're over L1, you're going to put that data into L1. So right here in L1, I'm just going to start putting the data. 93, enter to go down to the next number, 93, 87.5, and you're going to keep going. Okay, once I have all my data in, first thing you want to do is make sure you have the right number. So if this has 30 in it, and if you count it, it does, you want to make sure after you've pressed enter, you're on line number 31. Now I know I have all my data in, hopefully got it all in correctly. So I'm going to do the one variable statistics. I'm going to let my calculator calculate the 5-number summary, mean, standard deviation, all of that stuff for me. To do so, you're going to press Stat in your calculator, and then Edit. Oh, no, sorry, we're already here. You're going to press Stat in your calculator, and then arrow over to Calculate. Once in Calculate, you're going to press Enter on 1var stats. Our data is in L1, so list should say L1. We don't have a frequency list. You would do that if you had a frequency table. So you're going to go down and hit Enter on Calculate. And then this is going to give me all of my data. X bar is my mean. SX would be the standard deviation of my sample. If you keep going down, our minimum value is 43, Q1, median, Q3, max, giving us our 5-number summary. Another cool thing to use if you are here on your list, notice we put all this data in the order that it was given to us in, but we could change it so that it's in numerical order. To do that, you're going to press second stat. See above that where it says list, so we're going to list by going second stat. This is our list of lists, but right now we're going to go over to where it says options, and we want it to sort in ascending order. So I just pressed enter. And we're sorting L1, and again, notice if I press second number 1, that's taking me to L1, and parentheses, enter on that, it tells us it's done. So if you go back to your list by pressing Stat and then enter on Edit, notice our list is now in order for us. So that's helpful when you're making things like stem plots. Hope this video helped you out. We don't want to watch that twice. So that is linked to your PowerPoint if you want to go back and see it again, or if you're confused. Then the next thing I want to walk you through is how to make a box plot. And I'm also going to show you a little bit on looking at your box plots and comparing them to your histograms. Big thing that you want to use this for is when you have to go through your SOCs, it's helpful to be able to go from one to the next. So go ahead and watch this video on making box plots. I'm going to continue on using the data from problem number 92 in your book. It's on page 70. We're going to use the data to help us make a box plot. We'll also take a look at a histogram as well. So if you remember from what we did before, I have the data, we sorted it out, so it's in numerical order. We already looked at our 5-number summary, we would have an idea, we can definitely make it by hand. But so you can get those quick